Hey you guys, what's up? So today we got a review on the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter telephoto lens for wildlife photography. So far, been using this lens for a while now, been loving this lens for the price. It's just doing amazing work. But, however, there's pros and there's cons to this lens, right? And today we're gonna be talking about both the pros and the cons to this lens, what I love about it, what I think could be improved, what some of the advantages are it, and stuff like that. So thank you for joining me out here today in my backyard. We had a beautiful storm last night, just made a beautiful cloud cover today. A lot of rain left over this morning when we got up, and got some flowers blooming, so it's gonna be a good day, and we're gonna hop straight into this review for you guys. So first, let's hop into the specs of this lens. This lens is a 150 millimeter to 600 millimeter lens, and what I really love about this lens is, first of all, going off those specs, 600 millimeters is awesome for wildlife photography. 600 millimeters gets you quite a bit of what you want, and until you start spending a lot more than that, it's really hard to get a lens that's already at 600 millimeters without adding like a teleconverter, something like that. So that makes a huge pro for this lens. You're able to get nice and close up on a lot of birds, get a lot of nice tight shots, and I really like that about this lens. The second thing I really like about it, just at first appearance, is the build quality. The build quality of this lens is just great. It's probably the best telephoto lens I've had yet in terms of build quality, and I just love how solidly built it is. It feels good, feels sturdy, feels like it's not gonna, break. The movements on it are very nice and smooth, and we'll dive into some of those in the specifics right now. So the first thing I really like about this lens build quality is the focus ring. The focus ring is just buttery smooth. By far the smoothest focus ring I've used of any lens I've probably ever owned. And I own a decent amount of lenses with my videography business, my photography business that I run. And this focus ring is just, it's perfectly smooth. You literally can't get smoother than it. I never have that feeling of like there's hiccups in it or nothing like that. But yet it's also really nice and easy to turn, but it's stiff enough to where it's not gonna start moving like without you moving it. I love this locking mechanism right here. This locking mechanism is just an awesome feature of this lens, because with a lot of super telephotos or telephoto lenses that I've used, you experience, that lens creep where you could be just holding it and it's just, for some reason, creeping a little bit up or down, or maybe you're holding it down and all of a sudden it just starts creeping like that, right? But what this locking mechanism does, you just push that right up, right there, and suddenly you got a locked lens at that focal length. And you can lock it in a couple different positions. But usually I'm gonna be locking it at 150 or 600, because that's usually either I'm holding it back at 150 or I'm shooting at 600, something like that. And you can just prop it all the way up to 600, lock it into place, and it's not gonna start creeping or nothing. And you can't turn it straight out of that, but it takes a good amount of force to turn it out of that position. But I think that's also a pretty cool feature, because let's say you're there, right, and you want to intentionally push out of it, then you can just boom, move out of it, right, if you put enough force into it. But you can't accidentally, like if I'm just accidentally moving this, it's not going to go anywhere with that lock feature. So this lock feature is like the most handy thing I've ever seen in a zoom lens, and I absolutely love that about this lens. So another thing to mention about it is the rubber grips on this camera all feel great, whether that's the zoom ring or the focus ring. They feel durable and they feel easy to use, and you got a lot of grip on them, which makes it really nice. And another thing I want to mention is that the mounting ring is just a pretty standard one. It's nothing crazy special, but obviously compared to no mounting ring, it's very helpful. Whether you're trying to just carry that around in your hand, or whether you're trying to obviously balance your lens, stuff like that. And it works well. There's no problems that I've had with it so far. So that's a little bit about the build quality of the lens, what I love about it. I love the focal length that you can get on it. I love the build quality of the lens. The lens is very solidly built. And the last thing I want to mention is that for the price, it's surprisingly sharp. I kind of expected when I bought this lens, because of the price, it not to be super sharp, to be comparable to some of the other lenses I bought in that price range before, especially for telephoto type lenses. But it's actually ridiculously sharp for the price. It amazed me. I've used other lenses, around the same price point that have just not done as well with the sharpness. But yet, I've never really felt like the sharpness on this is lacking at all. Of course, it's gonna be a little different than, let's say I had a 2.8 telephoto lens or something like that. But for the lens, for the specs on it, for the price, the sharpness is very impressive. So now that we've talked about some of the pros of this, let's talk about some of the cons. So the first biggest, most obvious con is gonna be that the f-stop at 600 millimeters, the lowest that it goes is 6.3. Of course, it's going to be a little bit slow for situations. In terms of depth of field, I find that it's still really nice because you can get up to that 600 millimeters, which gives you an extended good depth of field. So at 6.3, it still looks really great. But however, it is a little bit slow when you're in darker situations. So you really have to rely on either a really good camera that handles low light noise really well. And again, it's not going to be the worst thing in the world, but it is something that definitely could be improved on, compared to a prime lens or something like that. But you kind of get what you pay for. So going back to that idea, for the price, 6.3, that's going to be pretty standard, pretty average. You really can't get lower than that for the price that you pay for this lens. So going back to the build quality of this lens, there's two things that kind of stand out to me that I don't like quite so much. One of them is being that the lens hood has a lot of gaps in here, and I'm not quite sure what the reason for that is, but it kind of, I've noticed that sometimes it'll allow some dust to seem to get more in on the lens, but I'm not sure if that's just me, speculating about it or not. But that is something that maybe I've noticed, so I have to wind up blowing off some dust a little bit more often than some of my other lenses. So that's one thing I'm not a huge fan of, but besides that, the only other thing is really the fact that it's not weatherproof, unfortunately. So, if you're out in heavy rain or stuff like that, you can get affected. I have taken out in light rain and it's been okay, but I definitely wouldn't trust myself to take it out in heavy rain or nothing like that. So that's a really unfortunate downside to a lot of, wildlife photographers who are in extreme situations sometimes. This doesn't quite work for that, so you have to just be aware of that and plan for that in the expeditions you do. And the last con that I want to talk about, I want to also be transparent about, that I can't really test to the fullness of its ability, is I have a MC21 adapter that adapts this Canon EF Sigma lens to my Panasonic S1R L mount. And so in that process, I'm not going to be able to at least attain the autofocus that it was meant to have. However, with this adapter, so if you're using an adapter or a situation like this, the autofocus is really not that fast. It's pretty dang slow on this. But I don't want to dive too much into that because you may be using a different system. You may directly be mounting it to an EF mount or something like that, and that may adjust your auto speed focus tremendously and the accuracy tremendously. But I have noticed for myself that it's pretty inaccurate. Definitely the autofocus speed on this with this MC21 adapter to the L mount does not really focus that fast, and I pretty much wind up manually focusing everything. However, that's the nice part about having a smooth focus ring, because a smooth focus ring just allows for amazing manual focus, and it's by far the best luck I've ever had with manual focusing on a telephoto lens. It's gorgeous. And knowing that with the Panasonic S1R, there's currently no good telephoto lens out for the Panasonic S1R, regardless of what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be winding up relying on an adapter, an MC21 adapter or something like that, to be able to get something mounted to my Panasonic S1R that's good for wildlife photography. So in this situation, I really can't say there would be even a better option right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for watching my review of the Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter lens. I hope you guys got something out of this video. I hope it helped you decide if this is something you're interested in or not purchasing. And if you have more questions, more comments, please feel free to comment below, and I'll get back to those as soon as I can. That way you guys can figure out if this is worth the investment for you. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you on the next wildlife photography adventure, Beyond the Shot, or whatever it may be. Don't forget to hit subscribe below, and I'll see you guys next time.